Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lecture we are going to do hands-on on improper inventory management vulnerability. We'll go to our sample code, identify this vulnerability in our code, its impact, and then try to fix it. So let's go to our VS Code. Now if you go to our index.js file and look at the routes. Now for all these routes so when initializing these routes we are passing two express instances. One is called app, another is app.dev. Now let's imagine app.dev was created by a developer just to test some of these routes locally on his machine. So this is a very quick method a lot of developers use just to create another express instance and assign some of the routes to that instance to quickly test in local machine without changing the original apps code, which is supposed to be propagated to higher environments like UAT and prod. So here let's say a new express instance is created. Now if you go to routes and look at the different routes here, again a new virtual host is created and registered under app instance by passing a new express instance here. So all the routes under app.dev basically will run with dev.localhost and then the port, which is 3001 instead of localhost 3001 port, right? Now if you scroll down here, we have a route added to this express instance, API users, right? And then this route is defined in the users dev.js file, which we are importing here. So there are two users.js file created here. One is for our app instance, which is assigned here, and another for development purpose, users dev, which is under users dev.js file here, right? So basically we have localhost 3001 / API / users running from this file, and then dev.localhost 3001 port API users being served from users dev.js file under route. So in users.js, if you remember, we were doing authentication checks right here, but for users.dev we are not doing any authentication check because this was supposed to be just quick development thing just to test locally by the developer, right? But what happens if the developer forgets and this code propagates to production because of lack of inventory management, right? Lack of documentation or just tracking of your code, not doing proper code reviews, right? So this all comes under not managing your inventory properly, not documenting everything, and this could cause a security vulnerability because, as we saw, something that started as a quick development test in the developer's local gets propagated to production environment without proper authentication checks for this API endpoint, right? So if you go to our browser and try to access API users endpoint, you will get an error, right? JD2 token is not present because this is getting authenticated and authorized at the API endpoint under our users.js file. But what if I change it to dev.localhost being served by my other express instance? Here, because there is no authentication, I'm getting all the user details. So this is how improper inventory management can cause severe security risk to your application if an attacker is able to exploit it. So to mitigate improper inventory management, we need to follow some of the best practices while creating your inventory for your APIs. Just make sure you have all the API hosts document it properly in your inventory, document all the data flows and their sensitivity in your APIs, generate documentation automatically wherever possible using open API standards like Swagger and other available open standards. Access control to documentation should be top priority, like, so not everyone should be able to access these documentations, whether inside your organization or outside. uh, Need to maintain proper access control to these documentation for your application or API. Then you can implement external protection measures such as API security solutions for all exposed version of APIs. Avoid using production data with non-production API deployments, or ensure that non-production endpoints receive the same security treatment as production ones. Always perform a risk analysis, code reviews when newer versions of APIs include security improvements. Take appropriate mitigation actions for older versions. These measures help organizations gain visibility and control over their APIs, prevent unauthorized access, and mitigate the risks associated with improper inventory management. That's all for this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one with the last vulnerability that we have left. Thank you.